Hi, everybody. My name is Juliet Bell, and for my case brief, I decided to discuss Anheuser-Busch versus Kurt Smoke. So this case involves obviously Anheuser-Busch, and as they're the plaintiff, and Kurt Schmoke is the mayor of Baltimore, and he's the defendant. So the core issue in this case is the city of Baltimore's decision, or Schmoke's decision, to restrict alcohol advertisements near areas populated by children. So Mayor Schmoke tried to implement a law banning outdoor advertisements of alcoholic beverages within 1,000 feet of schools, playgrounds, and other um, places that children may popularly be around. So Anheuser-Busch argued that this restriction of advertisements infringed upon its First Amendment rights to commercial speech, just by limiting its ability to advertise and therefore impacting its business and other alcoholic company but businesses as well. So Anheuser-Busch is a major brewer and distributor of alcoholic beverages, and it was directly affected by this regulation. It restricted the company's ability to advertise its products in a significant portion of Baltimore. But the intent behind Mayor Schmoke's order was to protect children from being exposed to alcoholic advertising, which he argued was a public welfare concern in general. So Anheuser-Busch argued that this law was overly restrictive and hindered their commercial free speech rights under their First Amendment. So Anheuser-Busch initially filed a lawsuit in the U.S. District Court for the District of Maryland, challenging the restriction on the grounds that it violated their First Amendment rights. And this district court ruled in favor of Baltimore, supporting the ordinance as a measure to protect children from exposure to alcohol advertising in their early years. Anheuser-Busch then appealed this to the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Fourth Circuit, which upheld the lower court's decision as well. So the appellate court found that this ordinance did not violate the First Amendment, and Anheuser-Busch sought to appeal to the U.S. Supreme Court, but this petition was denied. So overall, the Fourth Circuit's decision was the final ruling. The primary issue was whether Baltimore's regulation restriction outdoor advertising on alcoholic beverages within 1,000 feet of schools and playgrounds, whether it violated the First Amendment's protection of commercial speech. The U.S. Court of Appeals for the Fourth Circuit held that this did not violate the First Amendment. They concluded that the restriction was permissible as it served as a substantial government interest in protecting children from exposure to alcohol advertising. The court's reasoning was grounded under the Central Hudson test. So this test is a four-pronged test, and it's used to determine whether a government regulation on commercial speech is constitutional or not. This test was originally established in the Supreme Court case, Central Hudson Gas and Electric Corp. Versus Public Service Commission of New York. In this case, the first prong, whether the commercial speech in question concerns lawful activity and is not misleading, which was met. So then from there, the threshold goes to the third and fourth prongs, which was whether the regulation directly advances the government's interest and whether it's narrowly tailored to achieve the interest. The court found that Baltimore's regulation advanced the city's interest in protecting the welfare of children, and this was also narrowly tailored enough to meet that goal without unduly restricting more speech than necessary. The rule of law established by this case is that the government's restriction on commercial speech are allowed and whether they serve a substantial government interest. In this case, the substantial government interest would be protecting children. And it is also, like I said previously, narrowly tailored to achieve that interest without unnecessarily infringing on free speech of rights. To conclude my case brief, Anheuser-Busch Incorporated versus Smoke is a case illustrating the balance of courts must strike between protecting public welfare as well as upholding constitutional rights. It underscores that when a regulation is carefully designed to address a significant public concern like big government regulation, and in this case, it is the protection of children, it can overcome challenges even under the protections of the First Amendment. I found this case really interesting. I'm very interested in Anheuser-Busch company in general, and I applied to many internships for this company last semester. So that's just a reason why I found it really interesting and it stood out to me in like the list of the list of cases that were presented to us. So I had a really great time and I learned a lot by researching all of the information about this case. Thank you so much.